Welcome to Coffee Talk. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and join us. Today, our guest is Dr. Jennifer Mathis, CEO of the Online Learning Consortium, the leading organization devoted to advancing the quality of digital learning worldwide. She's been with OLC since 2015, having previously served as the organization's Chief Strategy Officer, Interim Chief Knowledge Officer, as well as Interim CEO. And of course, there we go. Jennifer followed her BS in Mass Communications with an MS in Business Education from Illinois State, and she holds a PhD in Education from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Her 25 years of experience in both public and private higher education, where she has served as a faculty member and an academic leader. It is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Jennifer Mathis. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, AJ. How are you?
I am great. I am great. Good to see you. So let's start off fairly simple. Some of our viewers might not be as familiar as OLC as others. So some may remember Sloan C, which is, of course, a predecessor to this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about OLC and what it is today?
Absolutely. So OLC has evolved as what we know about online learning and digital learning has evolved. So what we are really today, what we consider ourselves is a nonprofit organization that is there to support the whole institutional strategy for online, blended, and digital learning. And we do this through our professional development, our research, our consulting, and all of the conferences, events, and networking opportunities that we provide.
So what do you see as your role as CEO?
We are a small organization. So my role probably is larger in terms of where I'm involved than what you see at many other organizations, where the main part of this role is really to be the person who helps to set that vision and strategy for the organization, direct which way we're going to go, to work with our board of directors on the planning that we need to do. But because we're a small organization, I also get to do a lot of the fun stuff, like helping to consult, to do presentations, to help build partnerships for our organization. So, really, you get to be somebody who steps in at different levels of the organization when it's a small group working to achieve some goals.
That's nice. It's nice. And it's a good group. We've worked together on a conference. I've been to several of the conferences. You have a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal team there. And you've done a couple of things for the organization. You've sort of worked your way up. How do the roles that you've played previously with OLC inform what you're doing now?
Oh, absolutely. Because of my previous roles with the organization, I think it's made a huge difference as far as knowing the ins and outs of the organization, probably better than many people. I think a lot of people come to OLC and they see conferences and they think that's what we're all about, but there's really a lot more to the Online Learning Consortium. So that really gave me an advantage in terms of that. The work I did with consulting has helped to really keep me in touch with what's happening at many of the universities and colleges, not only in the US, but around the world. And I say university and colleges, we've also done consulting with K through 12 in organizations. So it's really helped me to stay in touch with what's happening. And as we look at trends, we're able to add to that knowledge base because of those experiences. And I'm able to do that because I still do some of that consulting and I still get to go out and meet with people and talk to people. And I think all of that my previous roles have helped me to stay in touch in that way.
Is that part of the fun stuff?
That is part of the fun stuff. I always enjoy that. I do. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work when you're doing consulting with an institution on how they can improve online or how they can start online. But it's definitely a lot of fun because you get to see those end results after a while, and it's very rewarding.
Absolutely. We all dealt with something that I think many of us who have been in the business cannot believe we actually did, the Herculean effort to make this transition to remote learning. So quickly, a couple of weeks, people who had never even thought about teaching online were all of a sudden forced to do that due to the global pandemic. What role has OLC played in help supporting this unprecedented shift?
Oh, absolutely. And AJ, thank you for saying remote learning, because that's one of those points that we've been trying to make, that, in many ways, many of the people who did shifted to remote learning and not necessarily true online learning, right? But OLC has been trying to offer opportunities to help educate people who are making that shift, who haven't experienced this in the past, to help them as they're looking to create a positive learning experience for their students. So we've had a number of webinars that we did right off the bat back in March, April, May timeframe. We did we created a whole new event for the pandemic. It's called Ideate. And Ideate has continued to grow, where originally it was one event, free, and open conversations that we created. But because of the popularity, we offered another one in August, which was specific to STEM. We've got another one coming up in December, and we're planning more for next year. And again, these are free events that we're creating and adding, so that the community can have those places to have conversations on how you could improve that remote or online experience. We had a website of resources, which I think you saw many organizations put out there, but where to go for more help. On top of that, we've had an unprecedented number of institutions, countries, organizations come to us for help and consulting. And so we've been very involved in that respect. And then our professional development, of course, has been very popular this year. One thing we did do is go back to our roots, the Sloan Foundation, and asked them if they would be willing to fund some workshops for individuals, especially at minority serving institutions who don't offer a lot of online learning. And they were very gracious and gave us money that we have been able to use this year for scholarships. And so we've had a number of individuals come to us for that as well. And I think all of those things, are helping the community to improve remote and online learning.
This isn't intended to be a plug, but I've been to several of the conference events, and we've had you here for one of the conference events, and I can wholeheartedly recommend any of the events for folks who are looking to get, but it's not just that, it's the other resources, and I'll give you a chance at the end to talk about where people can go to find out some more information. But sure. What do you think are the big differences? We sort of hinted on this, remote learning versus online learning. What do you think are the big differences we're seeing in both approach and practice to online learning today?
Right. I think what we're seeing today, with the pandemic, as we're doing online learning, you may not have that intentional design behind what's happening with online learning, but that is what online learning has evolved to, that there's intentional design put into it. People are using the course design rubrics to help determine what needs to be included in a course that's going to be offered online, and it's going to be offered in a quality manner, and it's going to best serve the students. And I think that's one of the biggest things we've seen change over time. When I first started teaching my first online course, I think I taught it probably in 1996. And what I saw back then compared to what we can do today it's night and day, right? I mean, we were doing a lot of things asynchronously back then, a lot of text-based. Today, we're able to incorporate so many different types of media into an online course. And I think that makes a huge difference. Although, I'm very cautious when I tell people, those different types of media are good, and they're important to being able to reach different types of learners, but we need to make sure that whatever is being done in an online environment, we're not using technology just for the sake of using technology. We're doing it in an intentional way, and we're making sure that students' learning outcomes are still being met. And that, I think, is the key, and one of the things that we really look at with online course design as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I guess this is sort of what do you say to people who say online learning puts students at a disadvantage?
You know, I think that it depends on how the online learning has been designed. I have seen online learning that puts students at a disadvantage, but it also happens to be a course that was not well designed, that is maybe put out in a way where the teacher, the professor, is not engaged in the process as well. I think when you look at the engagement level of the professor, it makes a huge difference. Now, there are fully asynchronous courses that are available that can still be very successful way to deliver learning for a student. But again, you have to intentionally design it in such a way to make sure that there are still touch points, still ways to engage the learner. We actually have a score called the Quick Tip, the Quality Course Teaching Instructional Practice, and that includes a lot of those tips for teaching an online course and what needs to be included. I always go back to teacher presence, teacher engagement, because just like in the classroom, it's important for a student to know who their professor is and to be able to engage with them. You need that in the online environment. I can't tell you as an academic administrator how many times I would have a student come complain about their teacher, their online teacher, and I'd say, "Who's your teacher?" And they would have no clue. You know, and I mean, nobody's ever had that happen, right? But yeah, they have no clue who that teacher is. And part of that has to do with the fact that maybe the teacher wasn't engaging with them. So they didn't take that time to welcome their students to the class or participate in discussion forums or share some of the research they've done in the area of whatever the content area is. So those are all good ways to kind of build that teacher presence and build the engagement between the teacher and the student.
I'll get a URL for the quick tips, and we'll put that down in a third. We'll also include it in the credits so that folks can look that up on their own. I recommend checking it out. Left field question or turn question here. We are in the middle of a really difficult time right now for everybody, right? No matter what side of the political agenda you're on right now, this is a challenge, right? Everybody's sort of trying to figure out what's going on, where we're going. And unfortunately, education in general, higher education more particularly, but education in general is left in the lurch often, even in good times. Mm-hmm. What do you see as the greatest, what do you see as the impact of this current recent election on education in general? I was trying to figure out whether I was looking for impact or complications. There's so many different ways to really look at this, but I think I'm really asking about impact.
Right. And you know what, I think that's going to depend on who ends up being elected. Obviously we don't, well, when I checked a few hours ago, we didn't have an official winner yet. So that's, I think, going to make a huge change. If we have a new president in the White House, we're obviously going to have new administration, new secretary for the Department of Education. All of those things are going to change, and then we have to kind of look to the new administration to see what guidance they would provide to us. If we don't have a change in president and we don't have a change to the Department of Education, I think we're kind of looking at things continuing as they have over the past few years. I don't see any significant changes, although of course during the pandemic there were allowances made for institutions being able to offer all of their learning remotely. The one thing I would say, not necessarily related to the election, but as we look at the changes that have occurred, we're seeing the accreditors look at how they can really support their institutions as they make the move to online learning. That's kind of a greater role that we've seen, or a greater shift that we've seen, that as these institutions were forced into an online or remote learning, they didn't have the training, they didn't have the preparation to teach online, they didn't have the approvals necessarily from their accreditors to teach online. And so I think we're seeing greater support there. Now, I think no matter which administration is put in office or is in office in January, we're going to hopefully see more support to promote quality in online learning that we're going to be shifting away from this emergency move to remote. And so there's going to be some recognition that we've got to be better prepared for the next time. We can't do this quick shift in what do we say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of, hey, you're going to be going online, you better move quick. People have to be better prepared for next time. And I think the administration what we're seeing right now from the administration or the Department of Education is an interest in making sure that we're able to do better next time. And then whoever's brought in, hopefully they'll do that as well. And I say that whoever's brought in, if it changes, whoever is in that seat will be able to also support that and continue those efforts.
We can hope, right? So
right.
what's the big complication that's going to stand in our way from us moving forward, do you think? If you had your crystal ball. Yes. I'm going to be talking to Brian Alexander tomorrow, and so he'll bring his crystal ball with him. But if you had your little crystal ball, what do you think would be the greatest complication that we're looking at?
I think the greatest complication for the future or for moving forward is if institutions do nothing. If they do nothing, then there's going to be no change in the future. And should a pandemic hit us again, they're going to be caught off guard again. I think the best thing that they can do is to start educating, providing professional development to teachers, to staff, to be better prepared for the next time. And I say next time, it doesn't have to be a pandemic. It can be a hurricane. It can be a tornado. It can be, fires, whatever. If we start doing that training and preparing now, the next time one of those natural disasters hits us, they're going to be in better shape. And moving forward, students are going to feel less of an impact, right? They're going to be the ones who are going to be able to say, oh, that shift was not as painful as it was during the great pandemic of 2020, right? So that would be my hope, is that people put those efforts in to make sure that their staff and faculty are ready for the future.
It was very interesting. I thought how a number of people went to reflect on what happened in the New Orleans area for Katrina when having to make this sudden and so hopefully academics will be reflective in their own process, right?
Right.
So if you were to say what the greatest achievement of the last year is that we can look back on, what do you think it is?
I would say the greatest achievement is that we've survived so far, right? That we've made it this far, that it wasn't pretty, but I think that people, that faculty, that staff showed, and administrators showed that they can adapt and come up with a new plan, a new strategy to move things forward, to continue education, that we didn't completely shut down. I think there were some places that completely shut down, in some countries where I know that they completely shut down. But in the US, as I look at what we did and what steps we took, we adapted. We made the plans we needed to make so that we could overcome the barriers that were put in place because of COVID-19, that we had institutions that, like I said, it wasn't pretty, but they moved to remote learning. They provided the technology that was needed. And I think one of the great things that we've seen as well in this past year is that technology has changed. We've already seen, heck, I can do Zoom backgrounds, right? I can do these things without a green screen. That's a big deal, right? Because we had to, and Zoom changed, right, to deal with Zoom bombing and everything else. So I think the technology changes that we've seen over the past year to accommodate this sudden shift have been huge, and hopefully they'll continue, so that as we continue to offer online learning, that we continue to see improvements as far as what we can deliver to students.
So what do you think will be, if I have you back a year from now, 2021, November 5th, what are we going to be talking about?
Well, we're going to be talking about getting ready, or no, we would have just ended our 2021 conference in person, and people will be so excited to be together, right? I think that's the big thing, right?
That's
I
right.
can't wait to be able, as you know, being in online learning and being able to shift to a virtual modality, it wasn't that difficult for OLC because this is what we do. At the same time, you know, even though we're in online learning, it doesn't mean that we don't like to connect with people face to face. And that's one of those things where a year from now, I think that's what we're going to be talking about, is how great it is to be able to connect with our colleagues face to face again, to network, you know, to see people. I think I'm not a hugger. And I think I'm going to be like hugging people when we get together for the first time again, saying, "Oh, I'm so grateful. It's been so long," and I think that's going to be huge for so many of us, and that's something I'm really looking forward to.
So we'll all have our Florida tan a year from now, right?
Oh no, we'll be in DC next year. DC
Okay. Oh, I
for
see.
2021. So
Okay.
it'll be in October, but still be lovely there, I'm sure. And you know, we can all be excited about that. But yeah, I mean, it is one of the things that has been the hardest for me this year, is not being able to connect with people on that level. We've created different types of opportunities, but there's still something about getting to see people every now and then.
Well, and I have to say, I've been in the industry for a while, as you know, and I've been to conferences for everybody, and I have great respect for all the organizations, even ones that aren't around anymore. I mean, NMC conferences were wonderful conferences, but there's a feeling that you guys, I'm not sure how, especially because I've been to the Dolphin, which is huge. There's just a feeling of community that you guys work hard, I guess, to develop, but your team is phenomenal. When we worked with you, it was just a great experience, and I've always tried. I look forward to joining you, whether it's in Washington, D.C., which I love. I don't never need an excuse to go there, and you're much closer to me, so
It's true. It's true.
I don't have as far to go. If anybody who's watching this wants to get information, or they want to make sure that their institution has a membership, they can go to onlinelearningconsortium.org, and there's an institutional lookup there. If you are a member, you should absolutely begin using some of the amazing benefits that they offer, including now that you guys have a couple of journals, I think, right?
We have one journal. We have the OLJ, which is free, and so definitely encourage people to access that.
Excellent. Always a pleasure to see you. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. That is about all we have time for today. Thank you for joining us for Coffee Talk, which is produced by the student team in the Center for Digital Humanities, part of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at Montclair State University. For more information on past and future Coffee Talk episodes, visit us on the web. Go to www.montclair.edu and search for the Center for the Digital Humanities. We also kindly ask that you find that big red button down there somewhere and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Instagram on our IGTV channel to keep up on this and other video content. Not only can you find us on YouTube and Instagram, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and if you're at Montclair State, you'll soon be able to find us on Engage.